Hello everyone, NecroVMX here, and welcome to another me making a tier list video, and this time we're going to be talking about the Fatal Fury series. So Fatal Fury, it's a series of fighting games made by SNK, and it was kind of like their original fighting game. Believe it or not, a lot of people who worked on the original Street Fighter created Fatal Fury. They left Capcom between Street Fighter and Street Fighter 2, and the first game that they created over at SNK was Fatal Fury. And of course, it kind of became its own thing, and it was very innovative for many reasons. This was the series that introduced super moves, which of course they call desperation moves, but basically the trope of a super move where you have meter and you fill it up. And why is it playing this? Whatever. Okay. Let it play. So, this is not what I wanted to play. So anyway, that was one thing that they created. Also the lane system where there's like a foreground and a background. Now sometimes that was not so fun, and sometimes it actually was a lot of fun. Sometimes I would be playing these games and just wish it could just be on a 2D plane, like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or whatever, and sometimes it's like, hey, the extra planes actually add something. So let me just go over the tiers here. We have S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and F tier. Of course, an S tier game is like a masterpiece. I'll basically describe these as a game that, if you ask me, should I play this game? An S tier game is like, yes, of course you should. Why haven't you already? An A tier is a little bit more muted. Yes, of course you should. B tier would be the type of game that I would say, yes, it's good. A C tier game, at this point, I would say, well, it's got some issues, but it's not a bad game. I would recommend getting it, for a good price, like if it's on sale or something. D tier game would be a game that I would say is deeply flawed, or maybe just aged poorly, but might have something to offer to somebody who's looking for something very, very specific. And an F tier game is something that I would just never recommend under any circumstances. So going through this, you could see we have Fatal Fury, which is the original game. The actual title of it is Fatal Fury: The King of Fighters. So it's kind of the original King of Fighters game in that way. We have Fatal Fury 2. Fatal Fury Special is basically, these are all out of order. I had these in order. What happened? Fatal Fury Special is basically like Fatal Fury 2 Champion Edition. It adds a few new characters. It kind of revamps the combo system a little bit. It's basically an upgraded version of Fatal Fury 2. Fatal Fury 3, Road to Final Victory. These are all out of order. I had them in order, and then when I went into presentation mode, it must have taken them out of order. So then we have Real Bout Fatal Fury, which is not a reboot or anything. It's just a continuation. It's sort of a new series within the series, with a new feel to it. But that basically is the next game. Then we have Real Bout Fatal Fury Special. Now you might expect that that's like that's like Fatal Fury Special, where it's an upgraded version. It's actually not. It's actually the next game in the series, and it's the sequel to Real Bout Fatal Fury, and it's actually the last Real Bout game that has like a story that makes sense. Then we had Real Bout 2: The Newcomers. We'll put that there. I'm going to put these in the order that I played them on Twitch when I did play through them. Real Bout 2 is its own thing as well, but it also brings back characters that have died. It's sort of a dream match Fatal Fury. It doesn't really have a story, doesn't really have endings, but it's, just another Real Bout game. Then we had Garou, Mark of the Wolves. In some releases, it is called Fatal Fury, Mark of the Wolves. If you're wondering why they changed it to Garou, in Japan it was always Garou. Garou Densetsu, or Legend of the Hungry Wolf, is actually the name of this series in Japan. I think the PlayStation 2 release of this game might have been called Fatal Fury, Mark of the Wolves, but the Dreamcast version, which is the one we all played back in the day, and of course the arcade version and the Steam version are called Garou, Mark of the Wolves, so that's the title I went with for the logo there. And that one is sort of like Fatal Fury: The Next Generation. They only kept one character, being Terry Bogard, and then introduced the young man that he raised, Rock Howard, and a whole new cast of characters, many of which are related to Fatal Fury characters, but and that's the soundtrack you're hearing, by the way, is Garou. Then we had Fatal Fury Wild Ambition, which is a spin-off, sort of a, I guess you could call it a remake of Fatal Fury 1, made for the PlayStation in a 3D style, if I can, sort of like the Street Fighter EX of the series. And then we have Fatal Fury First Contact, which is another spin-off. It's for Neo Geo Pocket Color. It's the only handheld game. There were handheld ports of some of these, but I'm just going by game here. It's the only handheld game. It actually is kind of a toned-down version of Real Bout 2, but it has its own gameplay and everything. I think it's different enough to count it as its own game. And like I said, the majority of these I played the original arcade versions. The only ones that I didn't play arcade versions when I played them on Twitch were the ones that are not available for arcade. Or rather, well, Fatal Fury Wild Ambition is a weird one because there was an arcade version. It was released for an arcade system known as the Neo Geo Hyper 64, which isn't emulated. So basically, I was like, I'll just play the PlayStation version for that. And of course, First Contact was Neo Geo Pocket Color. So anyway, let's get to ranking these. So the original Fatal Fury, I kind of hate to say it, but I gotta just bump this right into the D tier here. That's where it's going. It's certainly not an F tier game because I think that it's sort of worth playing just for like the historical significance and to see where it all came from, and it's got some good sprite work and the music is good. The gameplay is a little slow and clunky. It doesn't quite register moves the way that it should. Basically what I'm getting at is that this is a game that very much feels like it was made by the same people who made Street Fighter 1. Like if you go from Street Fighter 1 to Fatal Fury, you're like, yes, this is basically Street Fighter 2 without it actually being Street Fighter 2. So, Fatal Fury came out around the same time as Street Fighter 2. I think Street Fighter 2 was first, but Fatal Fury was not that far after it. And there was no doubt that like Street Fighter 2 was the better game. Like when the only time that I played Fatal Fury in the arcades was when Street Fighter 2 was mobbed. You couldn't get at it, The plane system in this is really janky. There's a foreground plane and a background plane, and you don't actually control when you shift into the other plane. It just kind of happens. The enemy will often shift into the other plane, and you can do something to sort of chase them, but it's like it's not. You never feel like you have control over which plane you're in, and oftentimes you would just wish that you were in one plane. This is one of the few games. This is the only game where I would say that the cheapened console version, like if you played this on, I think, SNES and Genesis, didn't have the planes because it couldn't handle that, and it actually makes it a slightly better game. That being said, it's not an F-tier game. It is a D-tier game. I would recommend it if you're going through the series or if you want to see where it all began. Unfortunately, there's only 3 characters that you can play as in single player, which is Terry, Andy, and Joe. But when you play multiplayer, you can play as any of the characters, which is pretty cool. Anyway, that's Fatal Fury 1. Fatal Fury 2. So, Fatal Fury 2, I think, is a big improvement, but not big enough. I'm going to just pop this right into the C tier. Fatal Fury 2 is just like a tighter version of Fatal Fury. It has more characters. It definitely has a better presentation and better graphics and everything. You feel like you have like a little bit more control over the planes. Just, it's still not on that level of like PlayStation 2. Street Fighter 2. Why did I say PlayStation 2? Street Fighter 2. Still a better game. Fatal Fury 2 was catching up, but it wasn't quite there. Okay. Fatal Fury Special, I would say, is also a C-tier game, but it's better than Fatal Fury 2. So I'm just going to put it like right there. Fatal Fury Special adds two new characters, and it makes combos easier to do. Now, I didn't actually stream very much of Fatal Fury Special. I played like a little bit of it, and then because I had played through Fatal Fury 2, and I was like, this is too much like Fatal Fury 2 for me to play like the whole thing. So I just wanted to show it off. But if you were going to pick one version, Fatal Fury 2 or Fatal Fury Special, yes, Fatal Fury Special is the one you want. Okay, so then we move on to Fatal Fury 3, and this is where I think there is the biggest leap in quality, because I think that Fatal Fury 3 is totally an A-tier game. It's really, really good. They actually revamped the plane system where there's a center plane, a foreground, and a background. So there's actually 3 planes, but you have total control over where you are. You can stay in the middle plane. You have a button that you can shift to the background or the foreground at any time. You can dash while you're in those planes and then quickly scooch in behind the other person. You have all kinds of crazy mobility. It's really tight, really fun to play. You can even attack players that are in a different plane. Like if they try to sidestep your attack by going into the background, you can hit plane attack to smack them. And that actually not only damages them, but brings them back into your plane. And sometimes you can even, like, get a combo off of that in certain circumstances, but not often. It feels really great. This also introduced a lot of characters that are important to the series. It also, like Blue Mary, for example, it introduced a lot of tropes. And I think the most important thing is that it's a game with a lot of replay value, because there's, what ending you get and what boss you fight is wholly dependent on how well you do. Like, you could get to Yamazaki and he could be the last boss, or you could continue on to Jin Chonsu, and then you could even go further into Jin Chanrei, and it's just really, really cool. It's a tough as nails game, but it's very tight, a lot of fun to play, a lot of fun to do combos in this game. Absolutely an A-tier game. The only thing that I think stops it from being an S-tier game is basically the way the buttons are laid out. The Neo Geo only had 4 buttons. So in this one, they kind of went for punch, kick, and then like strong attack, and then dodge. And I think, it would have been better to have it be something like more typical light punch, heavy punch, light kick, heavy kick. And then, for the, rolling into the background, maybe it could be done a different way. I don't know, but I don't know. I just personally think there could have been more buttons, but it plays really well. Okay, so Real Bout Fatal Fury. I think I'm going to put this one in the B tier. Real Bout's really fun. It introduced some new characters. It's got great graphics. This was the one that introduced the concept of knocking somebody out of the battle. Like, it's a 2D game that has ring outs, is what I'm saying. And when Terry Bogard was added to Super Smash Bros., they added the his stage and the whole gimmick of there being like a wall there that characters would bounce off of, and if you did enough damage to that wall, they would go through it. And that is actually from Real Bout Fatal Fury. It's the only game that did that, though. The other Real Bout games got rid of that system. It's a lot of fun, although it could very quickly end a battle if you're lucky or unlucky, so to speak. But yeah, it's a good game. I think it's a step below Fatal Fury 3, but definitely would recommend it. Okay, Real Bout Special, I think, is an A-tier game, and I think I'm going to put it above Fatal Fury 3. It's actually my favorite of the Real Bout series. It's so tight and so fun to play. Like, this is one of those rare games where every single character is a blast. Like, you could do really crazy combos in this without a whole lot of effort. Like, the level of execution is not all that high, and that is a good thing. I know some people who learn really high execution, tough, try-hard games don't like fighting games appealing to a more casual audience, but that's kind of silly. That's kind of like a form of gatekeeping. There's no reason why a combo should be the most difficult thing that you have to like practice for hours, But it's definitely like the best one yet at this point. It's a blast. Okay, Real Bout 2. I think that Real Bout 2 is a B tier game, but I think it's better than Real Bout 1. Like, to basically explain it, it's better than Real Bout 1, but it's not as good as Fatal Fury 3 or Real Bout Special. And I think that some of the characters in Real Bout 2 felt like they didn't belong in the game, so to speak. Like perfect example is Ryuji Yamazaki. Playing as him in Real Bout Special is incredibly fun. Like, he's so intuitive and fun to play. And then in Real Bout 2, I felt like I basically couldn't do anything with him. Like, I don't know if it was just like a really severe nerf, or they just changed the way he works so much that I couldn't deal with it. But that was the case for more than a few characters. Also, this being a dream match game, it's kind of cool to, you know, be able to play as some characters like Geese that were not technically supposed to be in there, but that kind of means that there's no endings and there's not much motivation to play the arcade modes other than to just say you have. The other thing that is a little weird in this one is it's called Real Bout to the Newcomers, so you're expecting, you know, several new characters, but there's actually only 2 newcomers, which is a little disappointing. Still a great game, though. Okay, so Garou Mark of the Wolves. I'm just gonna let's not even beat around the bush. This is an S-tier fighting game. Garou Mark of the Wolves is one of the best 2D fighting games. Now, this is the only one of the mainline. It's the last of the mainline Fatal Fury series, and my understanding was they were planning on continuing past this. They just never did. But you know, it's the only one to not have the plane system. Instead, it has this new system called the top system, where you choose a part of your life bar that's where you have, it's called top set. It could be the first third of your life bar, the middle of your life bar, or the last third of your life bar. And basically what happens is that when your life bar is there in that spot, you are topped out, which basically means you're more powerful, you recover health a little bit, you do better damage, you take less damage, and you have access to a powerful move. So you kind of have to strategize, like, do I put in the first third where I'm very powerful at the beginning, but if I get hurt enough, it goes away? Do I put it in the middle, or do I kind of put it at the end to go for like a desperation thing? And you can change it basically in every new battle. It's not like you pick it at the beginning and then that's it. The story is pretty cool in this one. The character designs are fantastic. The animations are fluid. It is tight as hell. They have a great new system called Just Defend as well, which is sort of like if you block at the exact moment that you're being attacked, you actually get a little bit of health back. To me, it kind of like fits that same mold of like Third Strike. Like, this is the Third Strike of Fatal Fury. So, definitely a fantastic game. Okay, so then moving on to the spin-offs. Wild Ambition, I was expecting to not like it all that much because I don't really care for this style of graphics or this type of game. And yes, this is ugly as sin, but I was actually surprised by how well put together it was. It has a story mode that remakes Fatal Fury 1, complete with FMV cutscenes and everything. It's got a lot of characters in it. I'm going to say that Fatal Fury Wild Ambition is a B-tier game, I think. I'm going to put it right here. It's not as good as Real Bout, but I was kind of surprised at how fun it was. It also added a few new characters. There were 2 characters that were exclusive to it. Almost all the characters in this were fun to play. It didn't feel as clunky as I expected it to. It actually plays really tight. I had fun with it. You know, I would say it's a B-tier game. Finally, the handheld entry, Fatal Fury First Contact, which this is the one that's actually the most fresh in my mind because I just streamed it yesterday. But I'm gonna say that this is also, I think this is a B-tier game. I think it's a B-tier game. If I was only saying it as being, I'm comparing it to all other handheld fighting games, it would be A or possibly even S tier. But I'm comparing it to like all of video games. I'd say it's a B tier game. As to where to place it, I would say that I would put it here. I think it's better than Wild Ambition. Now, this being a Neo Geo Pocket Color game, it only has 2 buttons. So you have a punch and a kick. You also have a special, which is done by long pressing either of the buttons. And that's all you have. There's no plane system, but it has that chibi art style that pretty much all the Neo Geo Pocket Color fighting games had. But this game plays really well. The frame rate is not the best, but it just plays really well. It's one of the better handheld fighting games. And I remember saying during my stream that, like, like, what did we have on Game Boy that was good for fighting games? We had kind of like a really jank Killer Instinct, you know? That was like, damn, I wish I had the Super Nintendo version. We had a half-decent Mortal Kombat 2 that was still like, damn, I wish I had this for any other system. And that's about it. You know, most of the other fighting games on Game Boy were not good. The Neo Geo Pocket Color somehow managed to make handheld fighting games work really well, and this is an excellent example. It's got all the trappings. It's got super moves. It's got power moves. It plays like real Bout 2, but without being real Bout 2. You know what I mean? I definitely feel that the real Bout 2 in arcades is the better game, but yeah. And just the last thing, if you are interested in these games and you want to know like kind of how to get them, you know, I think that most of them are available. Most of the arcade games are available for the Switch, or if you wanted to get them in a collection and you have access for a way to play PS2 games, there's Fatal Fury Battle Archives, which gives you Fatal Fury 1, 2, Special, and 3, and Battle Archives 2, which gives you the Real Bout series, and Garou is actually on Steam, and I would recommend checking this series out. It's a great fighting game series. That being said, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing next for a tier maker video, or even if I will do another. I probably will do another one, but I'm not sure when that's going to be or what it's going to be, but I hope you enjoyed this. And of course, you might have a different ranking. You know, my ranking is not your ranking. Everybody's got their own opinions and everything, but let me know what you think and, you know, where you would rank these games. I'll see you guys soon.